I knew the morning had gone wrong the second my cup slipped and the coffee hit her coat. Carla Maddox stopped mid-stride, staring down at the thin brown streak like it was a personal insult carved into fabric. "I'm so sorry," I said quickly. "I didn't see you coming around the row." Her jaw tightened. "Of course you didn't." I tried to keep my voice steady. "Carla, it was a bump. I'll pay to clean it." She didn't answer. She just walked off toward the building, shoulders stiff. And I stayed there a moment in the Minneapolis cold, wondering why something so small felt so heavy. I brushed the ice from my gloves, hurried across the lot, and checked the time on my phone. Only a few minutes late. The roads were a sheet of glass after the overnight freeze. Half the city had crawled through traffic this morning, but when I reached the entrance, Carla was already there. She planted herself in front of the card reader, arms crossed, breath forming sharp white clouds. "You're late," she said. "Stay out there." The air was cutting, somewhere near 10 degrees below zero. My face stung, my hands ached, but the real blow hit when I saw the red reflection pulsing from inside the system alarm indicator mounted above the operations desk. "Carla, that's a live alarm," I said. "I need to get inside." "Not my problem." She turned her back like she couldn't hear me. "Carla, please. It's the thermal control sequence. If it escalates." She pushed through the inner door without another word. From where I stood, I could see the alarm panel begin its silent countdown. I had built that sequence. I knew every stage, every code, every failure point. 10 years of calibrations and updates. 10 years of early mornings and late nights now slipping away one red blink at a time. My breath caught as the second warning lit. Then the third. I pressed my gloved hand to the glass, powerless to stop the cascade I had spent a decade preventing. And inside, the system I had devoted my life to began its slow, merciless unraveling. I stayed where I was, freezing, waiting for whatever came next. The first alarm shift was slow, like a pulse I did not want to admit I recognized. I pulled out my phone anyway, fingers stiff from the cold. "Come on," I whispered, tapping the screen. "Just call it, just once." The phone froze, the display flickering before it went black. Inside, beyond the glass, I saw 2 technicians sprint toward the control desks. One of them, Evan Ruiz. The newest hire, looked straight at me. His eyes widened. He started toward the door. Before he could take 3 steps, Carla slid right into his path. "Back to your station," she snapped. I could hear her through the door, even in the cold. Evan hesitated, glancing at me again. "Now." "Evan." He turned away. I hit the door with the side of my fist. "Carla." "You know this is wrong. Let me inside." She didn't answer. She didn't even turn. She raised her hand in a dismissive flick, waving someone else over to another console. A second alarm lit, one that should never follow the first unless 3 separate fail-safes had already collapsed. Those fail-safes required signatures, review logs, and multiple approvals. Someone had ignored all of it. My breath fogged the glass. I can still override it. "Just move!" "Nothing!" "Inside!" Voices rose, confusion, shouting, someone calling out for confirmation codes. Evan pointed at the flashing panel, trying to explain something to a supervisor. The supervisor shook his head and pushed him aside. Another light blinked red. The escalation timer had started. If I got to my terminal, I could halt the sequence in under 10 seconds. If I stayed outside, the system would lock itself, seal every panel, and dump millions of dollars of product into emergency shutdown. I pounded the door again, harder this time. "Carla, let me in. I can fix it." She finally spoke. "You had your chance." "Marina." Her voice was cold enough to match the air around me, behind her. The third alarm began its climb toward the final stage. I watched every second slip through my fingers, knowing what came next. The fourth alarm hit like a punch. Inside, the conveyor line stopped mid-cycle. Workers froze, then erupted into frantic shouting. I pressed my forehead to the glass. Move. Someone just move. A supervisor yelled across the floor. Why is the line dead? Who killed the feed? Another voice fired back. Check the refrigeration panel. It's reading 20 degrees higher than the set point. That's impossible, someone shouted. It was stable 20 minutes ago. I lifted both hands, waving. Let me in. I can stop the cascade. A forklift screeched to a halt, its operator throwing up his hands. My controls aren't responding. Everything's frozen. Carla's voice cut through the noise, sharp and irritated. Stop panicking. It's a minor glitch. Evan spun toward her. This is not minor. The perishables are going bad. Then do your job, she snapped. He looked helplessly at me through the glass. I mouthed, override code, pointing at my terminal. He shook his head. Locked. The fifth alarm chimed, deeper and slower, the tone I never wanted to hear. Critical shutdown. My phone was dead. My hands were numb. My voice was cracking. Carla. I wrote those codes. Let me inside. She didn't even face me. You are not authorized at this time. I stared at her back, stunned. You know that's a lie. Something in the control room flickered, catching my eye. My personal terminal. A warning flashed on the small display mounted above it, one I had built years ago as a last resort alert. Authorized engineer locked out. My throat tightened. Carla! What did you do? Evan stepped toward the terminal. We need her access. None of this makes sense without her profile. Carla finally turned. Eyes sharp as ice. Step away from that panel before anyone could argue. The final tone sounded long, hollow, merciless. The entire system collapsed into full shutdown. 10 years of my work, erased inside a handful of minutes. I stayed outside, breath shaking, hearing nothing but the echo of alarms no one could silence. By the time the alarms finally died, the conference room was already filling. I walked in last, still shaking off the cold that had settled deep into my bones. Carla stood at the head of the table, arms folded, expression polished and steady. The operations director, Gordon Pike, slammed a stack of printouts onto the table. This shutdown cost us tens of thousands of dollars in under 10 minutes. Someone explain. Carla nodded sympathetically. I will. Marina stayed outside, doing nothing. My head snapped up. That's not true. She didn't even try to enter, Carla continued, talking right over me. She stood there watching everything fall apart. Gordon looked at me. Is that accurate? I stepped forward. I begged her to let me in. She blocked the door. Carla laughed soft. Cold. Practiced. Blocked the door, Marina. Really? Evan shifted in his chair, eyes darting between us. I saw him open his mouth, but Carla shot him a warning look, and he closed it again. Gordon rubbed his temples. I need clarity. Marina, why were you outside in the first place? I was late by a few minutes, I said. The roads were Carla cut in again. We all had the same roads, yet everyone else managed to arrive on time. That's not fair, I said, voice rising. Carla saw the alarm. She knew exactly what she was doing. A supervisor muttered under his breath. This is turning into a circus. Carla pointed at me. She's trying to deflect. Marina knows she jeopardized the entire operation. My chest tightened. I have been the engineer maintaining that system for 10 years. I would never. Carla leaned in, voice slipping into something almost pitying. Intentions don't matter. Results do. Gordon glared at both of us. Someone needs to take responsibility. Right now. The room went still. No one looked at me. No one looked at her. In that silence, disbelief stung worse than the cold that still clung to my skin. I sat alone at my workstation, hands shaking as I pulled up the internal logs. If Carla wanted to paint me as useless, She would have to do it over hard data because the data would not lie. I whispered to myself as I clicked through the system. Timestamp 1, timestamp 2. Show me what really happened. The alerts lined up in neat, undeniable order. First warning, escalation trigger, override denial linked to my profile. My throat tightened. They blocked me out on purpose. I pulled my phone from my pocket. The screen was still dead from the cold, but the system cached my failed calls. 4 attempts to IT, 2 to internal security, 1 to the override desk, all within the same 6 minutes. I saved the records. Every second mattered. A soft voice came from behind me. Marina. I turned to see Evan Ruiz standing in the doorway. He looked younger than usual, nervous, like he was about to step somewhere dangerous. He closed the door halfway before speaking. I heard you yelling from outside. I held his gaze. You saw me. You know I tried. He nodded, guilt tightening his face. I didn't know what to do. Carla told me to ignore it. She said you were overreacting. The words landed heavy. Evan, you heard the alarms. I know, he whispered. And there's more. He stepped closer, lowering his voice to a tremble. Maintenance sent repeated warnings for 2 weeks straight. Temperature irregularities. Sensor drift. Carla signed off on everyone without action. The room felt suddenly smaller. She approved them. Yes, he said. I checked the logs myself. Her initials are everywhere. For the first time since the shutdown. Something inside me steadied. Carla's story had cracked, and cracks never stay small for long. The next morning, Gordon called me into the same conference room, but this time security was already there. A monitor sat in the middle of the table, paused on a frozen image of the hallway outside the main entrance. Gordon's voice was clipped. We pulled camera footage. You both need to see this. Carla sat opposite me, flawless as ever, hands folded. Good. Maybe we can end this drama. The security chief, Lena Ortiz, picked up a remote. This is from yesterday. Entrance corridor 3. She pressed play. On screen. My own image appeared, rushing toward the door. Coffee stain still visible on Carla's coat as she came in from the lot. Then the moment replayed from another angle, me pounding on the glass, mouth moving, breath fogging. Gordon leaned forward. Turn up the audio. My voice crackled out of the speakers. Carla, the system's in alarm. Let me in. Then Carla's voice, calm and flat. Not my problem. Carla shifted in her chair. That is not how it happened. Lena paused the video. We are not done. She rewound, then zoomed into a faint reflection in the glass behind Carla. The alarm light in the control room pulsed red, clear now that you knew where to look. I heard myself again. If it escalates, we lose the line. The reflection kept blinking while Carla turned her back on me and walked away. Gordon exhaled slowly. You saw the alarm. Carla lifted her chin. This is taken out of context. She knew the cameras were there. She could have staged all of this. My hands clenched. I cannot stage system alarms tied to federal temperature thresholds. Lena nodded once. The alarm codes matched the timeline. The panel was live. No edits. No overlays. Carla looked at her. You are misinterpreting what you see. Gordon's tone went colder. I see a manager ignoring both an alarm and the engineer responsible for it. For the first time since this began. Carla's confident mask slipped at the edges. The full footage arrived by noon. No edits, no pauses, no angles missing. Gordon called us back into the conference room, and this time no one pretended it was routine. The air felt tight, stretched thin across the table. Lena set the laptop down. This is the uncut recording from all 3 cameras. Carla tried to smile, but the edges twitched. Good. Let's clear this up. Lena pressed play. There was Carla walking toward the door, coffee stain still fresh. The alarm indicator behind her blinked once, then twice. She slowed, turned her head, and looked directly at it. Her mouth tightened. Then she reached the access panel. She didn't swipe her card. She pressed the manual lock override. The click echoed through the speakers. Lena zoomed in. Carla glanced toward the hallway, saw me jogging up, and pressed the override again, sealing the door seconds before I reached it. No one in the room spoke. Even Carla's breathing changed. Gordon finally said, "You locked her out." Carla shook her head violently. No, that is... You do not understand." She timed this. She staged the whole thing. I stared at her. Staged a system alarm tied to refrigerated inventory. She jabbed a finger toward the screen. "Your IT team tampered with this." Lena's voice stayed calm. "The timestamp logs match internal records. Nothing has been altered." Another voice came from the doorway. "Evan." "I saw her block the door," he said quietly. I heard Marina yelling. Then a supervisor stepped forward. "So did I." Another voice. Then another. One by one, statements started coming in small truths people had swallowed until now. Carla backed toward her chair. "You are all lying." But no one followed her down that path. The footage kept playing, and her empire of control slipped apart with every passing second. They flew in 3 executives from the Minneapolis corporate center. That alone told me this was not just another meeting. The tallest one, a woman in a slate suit who introduced herself as Dana Shaw, started. "We will keep this simple. Manager Carla Maddox. Explain why you blocked an authorized engineer from entering during an active alarm." Carla straightened. "I did not block her. I enforced punctuality. The alarm was a routine glitch." Dana's eyes did not move. "The footage shows you engaging the override while the alarm was live." "That recording is misleading," Carla said. "She manipulated the situation. Marina thrives on drama." I felt every eye in the room land on me. I kept my hands flat on the table. I wrote those sequences. There is no routine glitch with that pattern. The only manipulations came from the lock panel. Another executive, Thomas Reed, flipped through a file. Maintenance alerts, 2 weeks, temperature irregularities, all signed off by you. Carla. They were minor, she insisted. I prioritized throughput. We had targets to hit. Your targets cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars, Gordon said quietly. Carla's voice sharpened. She is loving this. She wants my position. I shook my head. I wanted the system to hold. That was all. Dana closed the file. Here is what we see. You ignored maintenance warnings. You overrode a door during a live alarm. You dismissed the engineer responsible for emergency response. Carla looked around the table, searching for an ally. None of them met her eyes. Dana spoke again. Final this time, effective immediately. You are suspended pending termination review. Carla's chair scraped back. You cannot do this. No one answered. She walked out, heels hitting the floor in hard, uneven beats. Then the room turned toward me, and Dana's voice shifted. Marina, we need someone to rebuild trust. We need the person who understands exactly how this fell apart. I sat up a little straighter, feeling the weight of every alarm that had ever echoed through that building. Dana folded her hands. Marina, before we proceed, I need to know what you require to take this on. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Clear authority, full access, transparent protocols, and no more burying warnings to keep numbers pretty. Thomas nodded. Done. And one more thing, I added. During an active alarm, no employee may ever be locked out again. Not for discipline, not for lateness, not for anything. Gordon leaned back. You want to change the emergency access policy. I want to prevent another shutdown, I said. That starts with doors that cannot be used as weapons. Dana exchanged a quick look with the others. Implement it. When the meeting adjourned, Evan caught up to me in the hallway. Marina, are you really taking this on? I am, I said. But not the old way. If we rebuild right. He exhaled, almost relieved. Whatever you need. I'm in. By the afternoon. I was standing at the operations desk again, the same place where the alarms had screamed less than a day earlier. This time, the room was quiet. Every technician turned as I approached. A senior supervisor spoke first. Just tell us where to start. So I did. I walked them step by step through the reset protocol. I had them verify every sensor, every panel, every bypass route. Nothing hidden, nothing rushed. At one point, a veteran technician, someone who had avoided looking at me the day before, said, "Marina, thank you for staying on this. We should have backed you sooner." I nodded. Backing me is not the goal. Back the system. Back the truth. Hours passed, but not painfully. For the first time in years, the room felt aligned, everyone pulling in the same direction, everyone watching the system come back to life because they wanted it to. And as the monitors slowly shifted from orange to green, something inside me settled. Not relief. Belonging. I stood there, surrounded by the team, knowing one choice still waited ahead. 3 weeks passed before the final decision arrived. Gordon found me in the corridor with a folded letter in his hand. "It's done," he said. "Carla's termination is official. The board listed obstruction during a safety incident as the primary cause." I nodded. There was nothing left to say about her. No victory to savor. Just an ending that matched the choices she made. Gordon hesitated. "For what it's worth, Marina, the place feels different with you leading the rebuild." "It needed to," I answered. "Systems only work when people respect them." The next morning, I walked across the same parking lot where everything had begun. The air was cold again, not as cruel as that first day, but enough to make me pull my coat tighter. I approached the front entrance slowly, remembering the sound of my fists on the glass, the sting of being locked out while everything I built unraveled inside. When I reached the door, the sensor blinked once, then the glass slid open. No resistance. No hesitation. Evan stepped out from the lobby. "Morning. Marina, you're in early. I wanted to check the new logs before the floor gets busy," I said. He smiled. "Your clearance update went through last night. You have the highest emergency access now. Even Gordon can't override you." I breathed out, steady and calm. Good. The system deserves someone who won't ignore it. Inside, supervisors greeted me with nods instead of doubt. Technicians called out progress updates without fear of being silenced. The place didn't feel wounded anymore. It felt awake. As I crossed the operations floor, Dana appeared from her office. "Marina," she said, "we're drafting the long-term restructure plan. Your input is required." I followed her, the weight of that frozen morning finally lifting. The door that once shut me out had opened again, not because someone allowed it, but because I had earned the right to walk through it.